everyone. This is John Kountouris, and you're listening to my program, Greek News on Demand, which is based on my website, GreekNewsOnDemand.com. That is GreekNewsOnDemand.com. Today is June the 16th, 2016. The time is 2:13 p.m. here in Los Angeles. I have a lot to share with you from the Greek world, from the world of news from Greece, as well as basically news that has to do with Greece and its relations with the rest of the world, with Europe, with the United States, etc. And then I'd like to talk to you a little bit about a recent visit I had with the amazing New World Order author and researcher and Christian pastor, Texe in his headquarters in Austin, Texas. I think you're going to like basically what I have to share with you today. It was a fantastic visit, and it was truly an honor to meet this gentleman because he's one of the frontline leaders out there exposing the New World Order. So anyway, stand by, and we'll get into this broadcast. Okay, what I'm going to play now is basically a show that I recently did with Texe in conjunction with some of my Greek colleagues in Greece who have an institute. It's called the Greek Research Institute. It's recognized by the Greek government as a university, but it also has its own separate news bureau. And so they appear on Greek radio and Greek TV. So we put Texe on there to speak. So what I did was I had to do the interpreting for him from English into Greek for our Greek-speaking audience. So I'm going to play for you a little bit of this interview first. And then after that, we'll get into some other issues. So stand by.
Mr. Mars, if one reads the works of Albert Pike and other Freemason authors like Mackey, about how Freemasonry is tied in with Judaism and things of that sort, and how basically this ties in, of course, with Satanism. They'll basically, come to the conclusion that this is indeed true. Basically, overall, we'd like your opinion on these works and on this particular subject.
Well, Albert Pike actually gives credit to the Jewish Kabbalah in his book Morals and Dogma, which is really the classic textbook of Freemasonry. The 33rd degree, that is, the largest rite in the world, Scottish Rite, which is headquartered in Washington, D.C. But he says that all of the 33 rituals for Freemasonry came from the Kabbalah, the Jewish Kabbalah. So it really, the Masons like to say we're not a religion. They dispute Christian critics. They say we're not a religion, when really what they mean is we're the religion. They believe that all of the religions must come together, and that Freemasonry will be the cement or the basis that holds all those together. Of course, this means then that the Jewish Kabbalah would be the basis, the foundation for Freemasonry. Of course, Albert Pike is interesting that, yes.
let me go ahead and translate that part.
Okay, continuing now with Texe.
So we can basically say that Freemasonry is a Jewish cult. It is a Kabbalistic cult. It's interesting that all of the rituals are based on Freemasonry, and anyone who's in Freemasonry for any length of time as a Mason would know that basically what they are doing is performing rituals based on really the Judaism, but not the formal Judaism, not the Torah, of course, but the Kabbalistic variety. It's fantastic. I'm not so sure that you know they're in Greece, but today, Albert Pike, of course, was a Civil War general. He fought for the slavery element for the South in the war between the states here in the United States. But he was a Confederate general, and it's interesting that his statue is right in the middle of Washington, D.C. They've taken out everything related to the Confederacy, to the South, to slavery throughout the United States. But the government has left up the statue of Albert Pike. He is still worshipped and honored and revered today as one of the greatest Freemasons of all time. I think that's fascinating that a Civil War general who favored slavery, of course, has his statue still up in Washington, D.C.
So, Texe, today your interpreter is none other than yours truly, John Kountouris, Greek-American journalist from Los Angeles. Okay, let's continue. Okay, so Texe, basically in one of your books, the creations of the life past, I believe that's the correct interpretation. Basically, you talk about how there's Eastern mysticism that's basically being promoted in America and around the world today, and that this is being used to basically strike at the heart of Christianity. So basically, what can you tell us about that?
Well, we call it the New Age movement about 25 years ago. But it was really a collection, organized, no doubt, but loosely so. Thousands of New Age organizations, all based on religion. And really, when you really study it, these New Age organizations and groups and religions are founded by Jews, or crypto-Jews, you might say. Jews who do so secretly. And this movement has taken over in America as the church has faded. And as the church no longer really supports the doctrines of Jesus Christ. As the church has fallen, the satanic aspects, the Freemasonry, of course, but beyond Freemasonry, many different groups. I wrote an entire book called New Age Cults and Religions. And all of these groups are very powerful today. And of course, we have satanic groups. And they're putting up statues of Baphomet in public places throughout the United States. They're taking down all signs of Christianity. Even to say Merry Christmas is just forbidden in many places in America. So, of course, we have President Obama, who has given us transgenders. He's actually saying that little girls have to go into shower rooms, take showers in schools, in girls' groups with grown men who are transgenders. President Obama said that little girls need to be familiar with men's genitalia. That's a sickening thought. Think about that. This is the kind of government we have in the United States. A government based really not on Christianity, not even on the Islamic path, but on a very sick, satanic element. But it's very, very big in the United States, these Luciferian religions. And of course, they've got representatives in the U.S. Armed Forces. They've told the chaplains of the various Air Force, Army, Navy, etc., to go along with this, not to preach Jesus, or they will be removed from office. And I know many chaplains and many others who have been removed, and now court cases are going up. So things are changing very fast, and very soon it may be that Christianity, the preaching of Christianity, will be extinguished forever here in America, regardless of the fact that we have a Constitution and a First Amendment. That is being basically, just reinterpreted. They're saying that things are in same-sex marriage, little girls taking showers with grown men, just horrible things that are going on here in America.
Mr. Mars, basically we read in the Encyclopedia of Freemasonry that the aprons that the Freemasons wear during their ceremonies actually correspond to the Jewish circumcision that we find in the Old Testament. And that basically when the Freemasons do their ceremonies within their inner circles, what they're actually doing is offering, sacrifices to their God and things of that sort. What do you have to tell us about all of this?
Well, circumcision is such a big element of the Jewish religion, and of course those aprons do indicate that, and they indicate that there's sacrifices that bring purity and those kinds of things. Everything in Freemasonry is symbolic. Everything, including that apron. It's even made from the skin of the skin of lambs. So it would be sort of like a male, whatever. But I'm not sure. I want to emphasize something here. Of course, in Greece, I'm aware that Freemasonry is very large, very powerful in the government, in the military, and so forth. But most Freemasons, like many Christians, unfortunately, know very little, and they'll want to argue with me about the Freemasonry is Christian. And of course, I always ask them, well, you must preach the name or mention the name of Jesus a lot in your lodges. And of course, that's not so at all, because the name of Jesus is prohibited in the lodge. So we need to understand that. And of course, wherever you're at, if you were in Baghdad in Iraq at the Masonic Lodge, there they'll have the Quran on the altar. If you're in New Delhi in India, they'll have the Hindu scriptures, the Bhagavad Gita, or so forth. So really, it's a universal religion. I find it interesting. People think that Freemasonry is just a local lodge. But in fact, it's very, very universal, and they work together, and they have meetings and conferences, the Greeks with the Americans, with the Germans, and so forth. So it's a universal religion. And their goal actually, there are many Israeli Jews within Freemasonry. And their goal, I know, in fact, one of their top books by a man named John Robinson, who is a 33rd degree. He's passed away now, but he was elevated to the 33rd degree. I think the title of it was Born in Blood. But he says that our goal is to establish a new temple, a temple that we will build in Jerusalem on the Temple Mount. And there we will have people of all of the world's religions come in and worship. So that's our goal, a universal religion. That's why they call themselves the religion. They're not a religion, but it's the religion. And I believe they have some very, very definite goals. And you'll find that in the United States, almost every politician of note is a Freemason. Barack Obama is a member of the Prince Hall sect, which is a black Masonic lodge. Bill Clinton, of course, was a member of the boys' organization, but actually he worked very close with Freemasons. And George W. was a member, of course, of Skull and Bones, which is a Masonic branch or offshoot. Hope I answered your question. Sure, I'll be glad to, Sophia.
Texe, we know about your book, The Secrets of the New Age, and you had written some pretty revealing stuff about all that. Can you please go over some of the main points of that book?
You're referring to Dark Secrets of the New Age?
The Dark Secrets of the New Age, yes.
Okay. Sure, I'll be glad to, Sophia. Dark Secrets of the New Age talks about the mission or the goal of the New Age movement. And it basically is the same as Kabbalistic Judaism. And they actually believe that man is vaulting to a form of godhood. He's receiving a higher consciousness. But of course, you got to be a special person and accept this knowledge and accept the beliefs of these ascended guides, beings from another dimension. I call them demon spirits. Maybe you would too. But basically, they're guided by ascended masters or ascended guides, demon spirits, in their beliefs. And their belief, of course, is that Christianity is only one of many, many religions. They believe that there are spirit guides who you can contact and who will guide you, that you can literally often have sex with these spirit guides. And they believe in a new world religion, a unified world religion. They're working very hard on this at the United Nations, of course. And anywhere there's a possibility, of grouping everything together. I think it's in Kazakhstan where they have a great Congress of the world's religions as well. Here in the United States, periodically they have a World Parliament of Religions in Chicago. But basically, the goal is a one world religion, a one world government, and of course that needs a one world economy. So everything must come together. So this globalism is what we have today. The established governments of the world. I'm talking about in the major powers, but certainly Greece as well, because Greece is really under the iron hand now of the European community, the Rothschild Bank, and so forth. But their goal is the same in globalism. In America right now, we're having great disputes over this. It has only come up in the last year or so. People are beginning to understand. We have Donald Trump now, who, he's an interesting character. But he has really thrown a wrench, what we call a monkey wrench, into the works, into what's happening now. Because he says these trade deals are deadly for America. He says America first. One of the rules, you might say, or one of the doctrines of the whole New Age religion is that you cannot say your nation first. You can't say Greece first. You can't say Germany first. But you must come together as a world system. And so we have not had a politician in America for 30 years who would use the term America first. That was like a no-no. Don't say that. Politically incorrect. So Donald Trump has come up and said, yes, we're going to have America first. He even says we want to build a wall to keep out immigrants. Now, this is totally different than Barack Obama, who is an agent of the New Age movement and of the New World Order, who says we want to bring in all of these foreign immigrants. Let them in. And right now, our Border Patrol does nothing. We're accepting these people in. And a recent report said that America had up to 60 million immigrants. 60 million. And a population of some 315 million. 60 million. In some school districts in the larger cities in the United States, the students speak 200 to 300 different languages. How can you have an education program, a unified education program, when the students in your school, they speak all these hundreds of languages? It's just an amazing thing. But we now have no immigration rules at all, and they come into the country. They're not picked up. They're not taken to jail. In fact, we're actually chartering buses and taking the immigrants. They flow into Mexico, or they come by air or whatever. We take them all over the United States. We're setting up communities with thousands of immigrants throughout the United States. I realize this is a horrible problem. Now, Donald Trump has said that Europe is finished. If they don't stop this incredible immigration, Europe is finished. It's not a matter of loving your fellow brethren and trying to help immigrants. First of all, the New World Order has gone into the Middle East and has caused chaos and tragedy and destruction with bombing and military attacks against the people there. We're forcing these people, these immigrants, to come forward into Greece, into Italy, into Germany and Denmark, all those countries. And they're coming over now to the United States, and the United States is paying. We're actually paying for thousands of immigrants to come in to our country. So what they want to do is kill all love of your nation. That's the first thing. And then kill any love of your particular religion, whether it's Christianity or Islam or whatever. But at the same time, though, the Jews that are involved in this are holding on to their Judaic religion, to their race, to their nation, so forth. They're the only ones. But other than that, everybody must come together. Now, that's really the keynote of the New Age movement. And if you're opposed to that, then you're an enemy of mankind. You're an enemy. And they say that we're the ones that will be destroyed. Those that push for nationalism, that push for our religion, that we're the enemy. And so that's sort of where the New Age movement is. But what their particular cult is doesn't really matter. They basically believe these same things: a one world order, a one world government, and a one world economy, because you have to have the money system that goes with it. So that's why we have all these international conferences and climate change, which is totally Americans now, we understand. In a recent poll, 70% of Americans said that climate change is a hoax. Americans don't believe it. But it doesn't matter what we want. We don't want immigration. 70% want to build a big wall here in America, keep out the immigrants. But it doesn't matter what the people want, the established politicians, the political parties and so forth. They will give us what the globalists want, what the New World Order wants. So we're right now in a great upheaval, and a great propaganda battle is going on. Fortunately, we have the internet, and I think we're winning the battle here in the United States, but it's going to be very close. They really hate anyone who loves country, who loves religion.
Basically, you wanted to point out real quickly that also in Greece, the politicians there have bowed down to the New World Order and have sold out Greece. And also, as you well know, and as you stated aptly, we too, of course, are dealing with a huge problem with illegal immigration. So let's go now to our next question, shall we? Texe, as you well know, because you're one of the top researchers and authors on this subject, the Jews, the majority of the Jews today, are descendants of the Khazars. You wrote a book on this. And we know that about 740, roughly around that era, the Khazars went to Khazaria, which is like modern-day Georgia, in order to escape the wrath of the Byzantines. So, according to your research, can you please tell us how the Jews of today became the Khazars, and how they relate with the Jews of today?
Well, that is really accurate. And it's an astonishing historical fact. as well. Many authors have talked about this over the years, but recently we've had DNA science finally to verify. And of course, Jewish scientists are even fighting that. They want to keep the idea to people that they are a unique race, that they have been a race since the time of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They can be traced all the way back, but in fact, they can be traced only back to the Khazars. In my book, DNA Science and the Jewish Bloodline, I show clearly this to be the case. This is a scientific fact, only found out in modern days. What we discover is that the Russians having, and of course with the Byzantine situation as well, Khazaria was the largest country in Europe. And Khazaria fell, of course, to the Russian Tsar. And then the Khazarian people who had converted to Judaism. Judaism was almost dead in the world. Very few Jews were left of the Jewish race. But when Khazaria converted, that was an incredible number of people all at once moving into Judaism. But they were not Jews racially. They had never been to the Middle East, never been to Israel. They were of the Turkic race. Even some Mongolians and such were in there. So they were a Turkic race, but they called themselves Jews. And many of them, even adopted Jewish names. So they had a king named Bulan, and he required the people. You didn't do it willingly. You didn't volunteer. You had to become a Jew of that religion. But later on, as the Russians conquered those peoples, many of them immigrated over to Lithuania, to Poland, and other areas there in Europe. And there they formed the rabbinic communities, okay? But they call themselves Jews, but they were really Turkey. Over hundreds of years, they actually, they've never been into education until probably the last 150 years. So they really clustered themselves in these little communities, and they really studied the Jewish Talmud, and they adopted the Jewish Kabbalah. And so they became a separate people to themselves. They were not Jews, but they called themselves Jews. This gets back to the Bible. In Revelation 2 and 3, it says there, talks of them which say they are Jews, but are not, and are the synagogue of Satan. They say they're Jews, but they're not, and they're the synagogue of Satan. They're the Kabbalah. They're the worst kind of occultism. And Jesus talked about the same kind of people. He said, "You have for your religion," he told the Jews of that day, "you don't have the worship of the Old Testament, the reading of the Old Testament." He called it the Torah, of course, the first 5 books. He says, "You have for your religion," he told the Jews, the Pharisees, "it's man-made, the traditions of men." That's what Judaism is all about. It's not about God. It's not about Abraham or Moses. It's about the traditions of men. So they took this, and now in 1948, both the United States and the Soviet Union were the two greatest powers in the world. Stalin over in Russia, Truman in the United States. Truman was paid a great bribe. Was paid millions of dollars by the Jews. We know this now. It's FBI files have been released. A man named Abraham Feinberg, who was a Jewish spy. I'm getting in maybe a little bit too deep here. But basically, in 1948, the United States and Russia together on the very same day recognized Israel as a separate nation within the overall territory of Palestine in the Middle East. And from that moment on, in 1948, they'd come into Israel in some numbers beforehand. But in 1948, we had hundreds of thousands of Jews flowing in, particularly from Poland. In fact, did you know that every prime minister of Israel has always been from Poland? For example, David Ben-Gurion, the first prime minister, he was from Poland. Even Netanyahu, now Netanyahu was born in Israel, but his father was Polish. So Poland, the Polish Khazars, who believe themselves, maybe, perhaps, although many now realize that they are Khazars, they're not Jews at all. There's no blood relation whatsoever. So these Khazars now have taken over Israel. They claim to be Jews. They're not. They're the synagogue of Satan. And they brought great misery to the Palestinians. Now, the interesting fact is that Truman, he tricked the Jews. At the last moment, they brought in a document for him to sign, where he actually said the United States recognizes, for the first time, as a state, Israel. That's where we recognize the state of Israel in 1948. But they had the words typed in for him to sign. The Jewish state of Israel. He took his pen, this is President Harry Truman, and he lined through the words, the Jewish, and he left the word state. He created the state of Israel. But he specifically lined through, he omitted. He said this will not be a Jewish state. It will simply be another state. It will not be theocratic or religious. Of course, that gave the Palestinians the absolute right of citizenship. It created one nation for both Jews and the Palestinians, whether they were Arabs or Christian or whatever. But the Jews don't tell people that. No one really knows that Truman did not create a Jewish state, but instead a secular state within Israel. That's why we have the Khazars today. And of course, they're in their religion, the Orthodox Jew really is more, let's just say, poisonous than many other Jews. You know, they're Sephardic Jews and a few other small sects, but the Khazars really are the most powerful, and they constitute about 95% of all the Jews in the world. So I hope I answered your question.
Texe, in your book, The Lodges of Darkness, you mentioned basically how there's this strange obelisk with like a fountain around it that they set up everywhere in countries in Europe and things of that sort, and how this is used like as a place or an object of worship. What can you basically tell us about that?
You know, of course, the obelisk first came from Egypt, the Egyptian obelisk. What is its meaning? It really is a sexual sign. It's a sign of a sexual cult. It is the male organ. It's the phallus of Osiris, the sun god of Egypt. And, you know, the United States probably has the largest, 555 feet, which is 6,666 inches. So we have 666, involved in the coding or numerology of the Washington Monument. Of course, the pool of water would be there, and that is the male substance, of course, that gives, the semen of the male. Obelisks are all over the world. They've been built. And, of course, many of them have been taken from Egypt, but they're now all over. Even in Israel, the Supreme Court of Israel, there is an obelisk. There is an obelisk outside of Hebrew University in the courtyard in Jerusalem. So an obelisk is a very important part of the religion of the ancients. That religion, by the way, the Mystery Babylon religion, is a religion of Kabbalah. It's the very same religion. You know, I've been so shocked that, I wrote an entire book called Mysterious Monuments that talks about architecture and the meaning of the obelisk and the pyramid and thousands of other objects, the meaning of it architecturally. And I found that, of course, the worship of the gods, plural, as we did in Egypt with, Athena, Zeus, and so forth, is the very same worship that the Jews practice today. Many people believe that the Jews worship the great I Am or Jehovah of the Old Testament. Not true at all. The Jews worship many gods and goddesses, and they believe that these gods and goddesses have sex with each other constantly. And they invite males and females to have sex together, and that inspires the sexual generativity that created the world even and through sex. Of course, this is a very sick sex cult. But certainly whenever you see the obelisk, which is a familiar sign, you'll see it in everywhere in cemeteries, graveyards, and so forth. It's a favorite sign showing resurrection. Because, it all goes back to the Egyptian myths that basically changed into the Greco-Roman myths of Athena and Zeus, and then, of course, over into to Rome. But when I study the Jewish Kabbalah today, I'm basically studying the Egyptian, the Babylonian, and particularly the Greco-Roman religions. Anyone that would know about ancient Greece would understand that is the Jewish Kabbalah. That is the religion of Judaism today. And two sets of books, basically. The Talmud, which gives them the 613 laws of Judaism, and the commentaries. And then they have the Kabbalah, which is an occult book, which talks about all of these gods and goddesses. The Jews do not even pray to God. They believe that, like in Freemasonry, God is ineffable, is a mystery. He cannot communicate with human beings. Men do not pray for him. They pray to one of the gods or goddesses, or they pray to the holy serpent, whom they call Leviathan. This is an amazing thing. Many people believe that Judaism is the same as Christianity. They believe that the New Testament was just taken and put on top of the Old Testament. That's not true at all. Christianity is an entirely different concept, different ideas, different ideology, where Judaism is based, today's Judaism, is not based on the Torah. It is based on the man-made traditions of these rabbis. The rabbis who wrote the Talmud, and the rabbis who wrote and devised the evil of the Kabbalah. That's what Judaism is all about today.
We know that the Zionist Jews were behind the World Wars. We know that they created this thing called the Holocaust to be used as a way to create the state of Israel. What, in your opinion, are the Jews going to do in order to bring about now their one world leader?
I think the Jews are very clear about this. This is not my opinion at all. But, I have a new book out entitled Holy Serpent of the Jews that talks about the last days that the rabbis claim that they find in the Kabbalah and in the Talmud as well. Their goal, of course, is exactly, it's politically incorrect to say it, but the protocols of Zion are quite accurate. The protocols of Zion tell exactly what the Jews are going to do, but this knowledge is taken from the Talmud and from the Kabbalah. Of course, they believe that Satan is their God. Now, they don't call him Satan; they call him the Great Serpent, or they call him Malkuth, the great. Or they worship the feminine concept, the Shekinah. But there are many words that they use to discuss Satan in their prayers and in their in their worship services. In fact, the Jews teach that right in the middle of the Torah is the letter of Vav, the Hebrew letter. They they say that is a sign of the serpent. It's the letter 6, the sixth letter in the the Hebrew alphabet is Vav. That is the letter that is found right in the middle of the Torah. And they're very mystical about this. The Jews say, a famous rabbi named Moses Hasod said that in the number 666 is great messianic potential. So they recognize the number 666, but in their Kabbalah, they say it has great messianic potential. Of course, we know the number 666 is the number of the beast and so forth. They believe that this great beast they call Leviathan, that of course we find in the Old Testament, in the book of Job, this great beast actually is their benefactor, their companion, their friend. The Jews literally, many of them, not all, of course, just like not all Christians, believe in any one doctrine. But they believe this great beast, Leviathan, they believe he will come up out of the pit. Now this gets back to the Bible, because the Bible says the same thing in Revelation 9 and 11. But this great beast, the serpent, Leviathan, who is the companion who elevates the Jews, he assists them on their movement up. The Jews are an upward mobile, race. And they alone will remain a single race, a single ethnic group. And they will be elevated by Leviathan the serpent, who will make the Jews into the superior race on earth. So they will be the people of the serpent. And they will ascend to godhood. This is just like the New Age movement. Through higher consciousness, they will ascend. And through the serpent wisdom, they will ascend. And the Jews will take over the world. And of course, they're working toward this now. They control the media. They control the banking industries. They control education institutions. They have such incredible control. But they're a small group. Throughout the world, there are less than 20 million Jews. I mean, there's more people in Greece than there are Jews in the entire world. Yet they believe they're superior. They believe that their flesh, their DNA is different. They're of a different species than any other race. They believe that their blood is special, even though the Khazars, we've already come to the conclusion that they are all Khazars. They're not really Jews. They have no distinct ties to Israel or anything else. Nevertheless, they believe this because their Talmud teaches them these things. They believe they will become the superior race on planet Earth. At that time, all of the Gentiles on Earth will be conquered. There will come a great day of purification. It's called the Day of Purification. On the Day of Purification, all the Jews will become as gods. All the Gentiles will give all of our wealth. Everything that we own will become the Jews' possession. Sort of like what happened in the Soviet Union, All the property, all the wealth went to the Jews who controlled the Soviet Union. Lenin, Trotsky, and the other Jews who controlled communism and that style of government there in Moscow. This is what they believe. They believe what happened in the Soviet Union will come about for the whole world. There will be a world union of republics. But these Jews will sit at the top as the party. This is called the party, like the Communist Party. And they will control. It will be the Leviathan, the serpent, that gives them their great power. He will come up out of the pit of hell, I believe, and he will give the Jews their great power. And at that time, they will ask that all Muslims, all Christians, everyone of other faiths cannot worship idols. Jesus, according to the Kabbalah, is an idol. If you worship Jesus, you're an idolatrous. You're an idolater. And you will be put to death. The punishment will be beheaded. The guillotine and other ways of punishment. But you will be beheaded. only those Gentiles who agree to work for the Jews to become their slaves will be allowed to exist. They will be called the righteous Gentiles. They will never be good enough to be Jews, because the Jews will be gods on earth. At that time, on the day of purification, when all the Gentiles are either destroyed or become their slaves, then the Jews will become their own Messiah. They will have a new king, a King David, so reborn, so to speak. But he will be just like them, another Jew, another God-man. At that time, they will say, we are our own Messiah. And so this is what they believe will happen. They believe they are now headed for a takeover of the whole world. That's why they want to keep their blood pure. That's why they do not believe in marriage with other races. That's why they want a nation of Israel. Israel is like you might say, the foundation of the capstone, whatever you want to call it, for this new world order. They want a greater Israel. And that's the reason on the Jewish flag we have the Jewish Star of David. It is coded 666. The Jewish Star of David. The six-pointed star. And it's on a white background, and there are two stripes that go across. And they believe that everything in between those two stripes, one which is the Niles River, and the other is the Euphrates in Baghdad. But they believe that everything in there will be greater Israel. They will first take greater Israel, and then they will take the whole world. So this is their plan, and I think they're very close to it because they're using Europe and the United States as proxies. One of the premier plans is world immigration. This is the greatest movement of the 21st century. World immigration.
Okay, so anyway, I basically did my best to play for you guys the interview we did with Texe Mars. I had to admit as best as I could the Greek segment. But Texe was excellent. He was right on point. He also referred to his new book, which is called Holy Serpent of the Jews. Holy Serpent of the Jews. You can find that book on his website, powerofprophecy.com. I believe that's what it is. Powerofprophecy.com. That should be one word. But if you go into Google and you just basically Google his name, Texe Mars, TexeMarrs, you're going to basically see his website pop up right away. And again, it is powerofprophecy.com. That is correct. So basically what he says about his new book is basically that we're discovering the Jewish rabbis' secret plan for Satan to crush their enemies and vault the Jews to global domination. And what Texe says in his website is, today we are on the threshold of a horrifying new epoch of Jewish history. Now comes the Holy Serpent, slithering from his fiery abode in hell to wreak havoc upon humanity. Jesus once declared, "Ye serpents, ye generation of vipers, how can ye escape the damnation of hell?" Amazingly, the Jews have proven to be exactly what Jesus prophesied. They are the people of the serpent, unregenerated hypocrites, whose religion is unparalleled in its treachery, its wickedness, and its unbound filth. The Kabbalah and the Talmud, authored by the rabbis, are the very code of hell, the doctrines of devils. On the surface, the Jews appear to be pious, humanitarian, charitable, and good. The very picture of saintly human beings, they are said to be exalted and true, God's chosen. But appearances are deceiving. The evil spirits of those who once worshipped Molech, who fashioned a golden calf in the desert, and who tortured and tormented Jesus Christ, are back. And the whole world is in jeopardy. Making its way on stage is the most colossal devil religion ever. The people of the serpent have awakened Abaddon, and the beast is rising. Now, when he says the people of the serpent have awakened to Abaddon and the beast is rising, he's actually referring to a Bible scripture in the book of Revelation, chapter 9, verse 11, where it states, now notice the verse here, 9:11, Revelation 9:11. And John the Revelator states, they had as king over them the angel of the abyss, whose name in Hebrew is Abaddon, and in Greek is Apollyon, which means the destroyer. So, again, Power of Prophecy, you can get his book, Holy Serpent of the Jews. It's fantastic. He sent me a free copy to read, and I can't put the book down. I've already read about 70 pages of it because I just received it. And basically, you're going to see how it gets into amazing detail about how very prominent rabbis, Jewish rabbis, from all over the world and over the centuries have basically explicitly stated all of this, that this is their goal, and that basically the Jews are waiting for their great Messiah, who's this great serpent. And basically it's to this serpent that they pray, and they also pray to other deities that are associated with the Jewish Kabbalah. And it's just astounding when you get into the details of the book, because you begin to realize that, the Kabbalah really is a demonic religion that was set up by the Jews centuries ago, by which to basically gain power from the abyss of hell, from El Diablo himself, in order to basically take over the world. And they use this power to rule over the nations, to deceive the masses, let's say, for example, through the governments, through the mainstream news media, etc., etc. And that's why it's really important for us to get his book and to basically get informed on the truth about this. Now, if you go to YouTube and you type in Texe Mars, you'll see tons of videos that he's done, basically for years now on YouTube. And if you really don't know his work and what he's done, he's one of the most prominent New World Order researchers out there. And he follows along the lines of people like Ezra Pound, Eustace Mullins. You also have people like Cooper and others that basically gave their lives to get the truth out about all of this stuff. So Texe Mars, he's indeed an extraordinary figure, and we had to get him on for Greek media to basically talk to us about all of his work for Greece, because what he offers ties in, of course, with Greece and the Greek economic crisis. And he told me, basically in our interview, that basically Greece has become a target, and if Greece doesn't continue to listen to the European Union will basically cut the purse strings and basically kick them to the curb, kick them out of the EU. They'll probably have to go back to the drachma, but they will stop giving them money, which will cause the Greek people to suffer. And of course, obviously, that's a given, if you've really researched what's going on with Greece. Basically, I'm going to play you a quick clip where Texe Mars appeared on Alex Jones' show a few years ago. And oddly enough, Alex Jones gave him an opportunity to talk about basically the Jewish control over America and the rest of the world for that matter. So I don't know if Texe Mars has been on Alex Jones since, but nevertheless, let's listen in.
Well, at the same time America was having all of its ferment of our American Revolution, thank God we had people, we had Thomas Jefferson and others who were not of a dictatorial mind. So our revolution went a different direction than the France's did. But the Frenchmen really had a problem. First of all, they had this king and queen. They needed to overthrow, King Louis and Marie Antoinette. And they did. They stormed the Bastille. Who did this? What got them so aroused? We had an amazing conspiracy. That's exactly what it was. We had Adam Weishaupt, who founded the Order of the Illuminati in 1776. And then we had, of course, Rothschild, who funded the whole shebang. But it was the first great revolution. They said we're going to promote democracy, equality.
And by the way, they got the records of it. That's how we know all this.
Oh, yeah.
When the rider got struck down with all the command orders. This is.
Oh, yeah. I have a copy, in fact, one of only 10 in the world.
Wow.
Of the first book by Adam Weishaupt, when he set it all out, exactly what he intended to do. Adam Weishaupt was a professor.
I wish you would have brought that. We got to have you back.
Well, maybe I will. But he was a genius of a man, but he was called a devil man. He was a Jesuit. He was a Jewish man. He was a Mason.
He was everything.
He was everything. And he founded the Order of the Illuminati, which you can read about. Now, he founded this, and the idea spread throughout Europe, but especially in France. A lot of people say, well, they just killed the nobility. They set up the guillotine. All they wanted was to kill the.
They replaced one evil with one even 10 times worse. But go through.
Oh, absolutely. Christianity was the great threat.
Tell us the Illuminati goal.
Well,
I mean, it's pull down everything. Tell them.
Well, the Illuminati goal is just as you have stated on your program over and over and over again. Basically, they want to kill us. Listen,
you tell them out there, Texe.
Alex, well, the problem is that there are too many of us. And they want to rule. How do they rule with 7 billion people on this planet? The way they do it is to kill about 6.5 billion. That sounds so fantastic. And how are they going to do this? They have devised, we're going to take you through 3 revolutions, basically. The French Revolution, which is the setup for the whole thing, the communist explosion of the revolution, which happened in the 20th century, and now that we're in the 21st century, 2013, now we have the high-tech revolution. It seems to be good, Alex. I mean, they've got everything for us. I was just reading an article here about drones.
Anything you want to show, put them right here. We'll show people.
Yeah. Did you know that they're going to have 75 to 80,000 jobs? I mean, this is a good thing.
They're engineering the economy where the only jobs are in the tyranny. That's how you engineer.
Exactly.
The majority of the new, since 9/11, that staged event, and of course you know this, but for viewers who may not, the majority of scholarships in technology aren't engineering for computers or whatever. It's for the surveillance grid. So they're designing it where that's the only choice you've got. Sorry.
Anyway, I'll leave it at that. That was Texe Mars and Alex Jones back in 2013. This is John Kountouris signing out for Greek News On Demand. Visit our website, GreekNewsOnDemand.com. You can also see my personal website, johnkountouris.com. JohnKounTouris. And basically you can learn more about me, johnkountouris.com. Thank you so much.